I'm going to start by looking really at the future of the kind of cloud comms business, and really looking at some of the business case issues that many of us are looking at. Some of you know we spend a lot of our time doing strategy work, and with the people in the room, and we also spend a lot of time doing due diligence work, looking at people's business cases. And I tend to find there's two types of people when we're looking at business cases. We have the mathematician who has his forecast or her forecast just going straight up and to the right forever, with nothing really apart from just straight up and to the right. And then we have what I call the optimist, which is we've been doing 1% growth consistently for 5 years, and in 2 years' time there's going to be, a miracle basically, and the world is all going to change. And we also find that really the problem is some of the fundamental assumptions that you've all been working with are being challenged right now. And I think as we go through today, hopefully you'll get some guidance, get some food for thought around some of those assumptions. The other approach I often see is this approach, which is, it's all going to stay the same, nothing really changes in this industry, Matt. I've been in it for 20 years and I've never seen anything change. So we're just going to kind of carry on doing what we've always done, which is, a valid approach for a very short period of time, I reckon, but it's a valid approach at the moment. So we've got to, and I always get criticized by people about not talking about man in the front, particularly about not talking about customers and customers' requirements. And we're going to talk through how some of the assumptions are changing. But this is our enterprise research. We're redoing, we're bringing out a whole new set of research in the next month. But this is our previous research that said, small businesses, the main reason they look at communications packages right now is to improve customer service. That's their main priority right now. Some of those you might be saying we're going to a recession. I don't know. Maybe we're not. But a lot of people are saying, their main issue is customer service. And as we become larger companies, some other issues come in as the highest issue. But these are certainly changing requirements that we're seeing from our customers. So I guess the other areas that assumptions are being challenged are, we've got the customer requirements changing, and there's some of these things that we're going to talk about during the day. We've certainly got market segmentation changing, the way people are thinking of the market. We've certainly got to deal with now, in a number of the markets we've been working on, the penetration of cloud now is reaching quite a high level, not in all markets, but we're reaching a market that's more mature, so therefore our approach has to change. We're dealing with significant changes in route to market, which I'll discuss, and we're seeing very different changes in core product margins and therefore core product strategy as well. And also we're seeing some changes in the way we handle therefore the skills, platforms, and service we need. So some of the assumptions around these areas are changing quite dramatically, I think. So the first thing, I'm seeing a lot is people rethinking their product strategy. And I know there's lots of product directors in the room and strategy guys who are much more experienced than myself even. But in terms of where have we pitched our product strategy, it's normally into one of these boxes. So traditionally, maybe a number of people thought they could differentiate on product. They could differentiate on features. They could differentiate on bundling. Maybe now, as the markets mature, we're seeing more people focus on differentiating by focus, so really looking at demographics, looking at verticals. We have seen less in this market of cost strategy approaches. I mean, there hasn't really been a market where we've seen a lot of focus on cost. But maybe people will start focusing on quality more over here. So we're seeing people rethink their product strategy in terms of where should we focus in the future? Where can we really create value? And some of the areas we traditionally created value, it's becoming harder. So it's becoming harder to differentiate maybe on a product level in certain ways, or certainly the ways we used to differentiate on a product level. So we're having to look at other areas of differentiation and different ways to lead our product strategy. So I think you're going to see, and this one is often the one that is forgotten in terms of service quality. I think you'll find that our research also leads to the fact that people are very focused still down here on the quality of the service we actually provide. And I always say it, but if you say things enough time, people might listen eventually. If you look at people, just look at your own reviews, look at what's public about your company, and some of it is shocking. If you look at, when I'm doing diligence on companies, sometimes I say, what's the reviews? And they say, well, what reviews? Well, what do Glassdoor say about you? What do your employees say about you? It's all in the public domain. So maybe we're going to see more focus around here, and I think we're certainly seeing more focus up on the right, where people are really thinking about unique personas and how we go to market. So we're seeing a rethink around the way that we undertake product strategy. So in terms of strategy, this is traditionally how people have tried to compete with the larger players in the market. They've looked for quicker product innovation. They've looked at route to market differentiation. If you look in our market, most of the people successfully in Europe have really executed well on the route to market. So developed a wholesale or an indirect model that has been extremely successful. But, I think we're going to see, we're really having to rethink that whole kind of product strategy in the future. And, what we're seeing, partly through the pressure of the hyperscalers, and also some of the changes in the market naturally. I was at a very interesting Gamma session the other week, and, they were saying that, with even the transition on Sajir, etc., you have to sell basically twice as much as you did before to equal the same amount of revenue. And also, we're seeing the pressure where we were all used to 70, 80 points of margin, the pressure from the hyperscalers when we're talking about selling Microsoft or WebEx or Zoom, you're not reaching those sorts of product margins. So we're seeing some pressure on our core product margin. And that is forcing us to think about other areas. And I hope during the day, you will hear more around the value that can be driven from value-added services, the value that can be driven around some of the integration tasks, the value from bundling services. But I think we're being fundamentally challenged on that up and to the right graph where we pinged 70 to 80 points of gross margin forever is being fundamentally challenged. Certainly in the medium to large end of the market. So SME is slightly different, but we are definitely seeing the collaboration platforms affect service providers' core margin sets, and that's making people kind of think about what they're doing. And the other thing that I've been talking about for about a year now, but again, I think it's starting to happen, is there's a fundamental misbalance at the moment in the channel versus the service provider market, where a lot of the value has been pushed down to the channel. And that's why we're seeing a lot of investment in the channel, whether in the UK, in the kind of reseller channel. If you look at some of those huge resellers that have emerged, the Focus is the Babels, the Southerns, those guys have had a lot of PE money come in and really grown very fast, where actually some of the public valuations on the telcos are dropping like a stone, and a lot of the money's going there. And I think there's going to be a reset of that, because we've seen kind of so much value being pushed to that channel that as we see margins closing down, we're going to see some reset of that. Because I don't think the market can continue to do that. Whether it's an agent model or a reseller model, that doesn't make so much sense in the new world. So I think we're going to start to see some challenges to the way that's set up. The other point here, you're going to say, well, we haven't put lots of figures on here. But what this is how people use telephony within teams. So this is small business going to large business. So this is use it, don't use it. So you can still see collaboration is very relevant, but it becomes more relevant when you move up the market. So the SME still, and we had an interesting debate last night about this with my friends from G12 at the front here from the US. We had a debate about what happens here. But certainly where we've seen the impact so far of the collaboration players has more been in the medium to large audience, and this is the big debate. So there's going to be two words which are going to be, I think, really important this year, and they're going to be enablement, and I'll talk a bit more what I mean by that, and they're going to be how do I get there quicker. So how do I accelerate to enable that? So what, this is a new piece of research, and some people afterwards will tell me that I'm in the wrong place or whatever, and I apologize for that. But what's really interesting is service providers, certainly who are targeting the medium to large enterprise, are now focusing on enabling those, some of those collaboration platforms. And all of those collaboration platforms, and I've only picked 3 here, but they're probably the 3 of the bigger ones, have all announced service provider programs now. So they've all got service provider programs. So whether it's private provider, exchange, cloud connect, operator connect. And we've got 2 of the 3 companies here in the middle, actually, are here today. But 3 companies so far have managed to enable all of those platforms. So that being Cool Tower, Pure IP, and Telepeer. And it's a really interesting model, as people are saying, maybe in the medium to the large enterprise, what I should do is I should have an enablement play where I enable those collaboration platforms with voice. And maybe in the SME, I have my own platform and drive revenue and drive margin, and drive my own piece. So there's a lot of people rushing towards this model. And what I would say is, a lot of people get very excited about Operator Connect and Microsoft, rightly so, because they're the dominant player in that space. But I would also say that, Zoom and WebEx, I believe, are coming back a bit. So I'm hearing, we've seen the WebEx cloud numbers recently, and there is quite a lot of migration in there, but it's starting to become, an interesting area for them, and I think there's quite a bit of growth there. And similarly with Zoom, certainly in certain parts of the market, for instance, in Asia, they're very, very strong. So you shouldn't just, so people are now really looking at this enablement strategy in the mid-market, and people say, well, we can't make any money like that. We've always made 70 points of margin off our core platforms. I have the pleasure of looking at lots of business cases, and I can't divulge all of them to you, but you would be surprised you might not be making 70 points of margin, but in some of these models, you can make pretty strong margins still in terms of on the core of the platform in different ways, and also on the value-added services. So quite often, I used to believe it was a kind of a sum, it was like, oh, I'm going to make 10% or I'm going to make 70%, and that's a really hard thing to balance. But now, certainly that isn't the case. And there's a lot of opportunity beyond that. So I think what we're seeing is people accepting that there's probably an enablement play to be done. Probably makes sense for me to have my own platform as well in the SME space, definitely, because I can still drive the margins, and these guys aren't as relevant in that space anyway. So it's kind of an interesting change to the market. And, as I say, there's a rush to enable that. And you'll hear from a number of the providers today who are in that space, who are helping that. So I think that's a kind of an interesting change. And as I say, I wouldn't poo-poo that you can't make any money at this. The people who say that are probably the people with their heads in the sand and not thinking about the ways they can make money out of this, and really thinking around the problem. So I think you'll hear a lot about that today. Some people will recall, if you pay a lot of attention to my keynotes, that in 2020 I put this slide up. And so I'm so forward-thinking. I was saying this then, that you can't just, you be careful or you'll just be doing this. I think in the mid and large, certainly in the large enterprise, you may well be doing this, but you've got to think a bit more around what that opportunity is, because there's lots of opportunity around it. So in terms of creating value around enablement, there's also some other angles. So the other thing, when I put up that diagram, is there is the potential to open up internationally more quicker. So some of the players you'll hear from and you'll see around the place today are using those platforms to manage to open up and offer international services. So the challenge used to be is I've got my own platform in my market, but now I want to go to the US, or I want to go to France, I want to go to Germany, I want to go, and what I've got to do is I've got to go and build a whole new platform. You know, I've got to go and build a whole new set of servers, application servers. I've got to do that again. And what we're seeing, and you'll see them, you'll see some of the people today are using enablement to address new markets. So players coming over, like the ones who are in the middle, now offering multiple countries. Because what do I really need? I need to be able to offer the enablement. I need to work with one of the guys who are going to do the Microsoft piece for me. But I might need SIP trunking. I don't need to be necessarily running a whole platform instance in every market now that I want to go into. So I think it's going to be interesting that you can kind of tell that my American friends are here. You'll meet a few of them today. They're kind of cottoned onto this already. So the Cool Towers, my friends from Nuso, you know, G-Tow, others, I've realized this and are coming here and have launched services and are thinking about how they come here. Maybe my European friends are less quick on working out how to go the other way. But you know, this kind of breaks down some of the barriers. I would say, though, the good news for telcos and in Europe is, if anything, in theory, regulation's getting easier, in theory, because we've got things like switching, etc. But actually, it's getting tougher. So it's becoming tougher to be a regulated provider. So you're still going to have to be able to offer that SIP trunking, that core piece that you do. But I think you can see this as an opportunity also maybe to advance internationally and to use some of these enablement plays to reach out of your home market. And I'm sure there's going to be a whole load of partnerships and relationships which are built to do that. Probably, hopefully, some today, where, you know, you'll meet somebody, you know, and you'll work out that, you know, how this is done. Nothing is set in stone here. You know, I talk to the Cloud Connect guys, or I talk to the Operator Connect guys, and I ask them, which are you doing wholesale? And there are a few doing wholesale. How are you going to work with partnerships? And it's all been kind of, I think it's all emerging right now. So great opportunity for you in the next day to really talk to people who are doing it already. You might see them as competitors, but also you should see them as opportunities to kind of work together, because, you know, unless you're AT&T and you know, then you're probably, you know, you're not, you know, you probably can find a place to coexist. The other decision, which I talk about a lot, which is being driven at the moment, is where do I play in the stack? So if my product margins are being squeezed in certain areas, do I go down? Do I go up? Do I start offering different services? Do I focus more in certain areas? Do I start to think about other areas that will bring my service together? So these are all very live discussions right now. So with everybody I'm working with from a strategy point of view, these are very live discussions about where should we be as a business? And, you know, this is one of the questions. Is there a role for a pure cloud comms player? There's not many around. There are some very significant ones, but, you know, a lot of people are now taking a bundling approach. So they're, you know, very much bundling access or mobility or playing to those sorts of roles rather than being just in one space. You know, how are they thinking about this is a key question. But the thing I said earlier about how you need to differentiate, we should never forget this, that, you know, the reason I buy from somebody, the first thing I look at is customer support. I look at customer reviews. Support is as relevant a differentiation as it's ever been. Service and support is more relevant now than ever. So you don't just need to think about product all the time. You can really differentiate about your service and your integration and the way you work with people. And really, that's kind of what we're challenging you to think about, is maybe there isn't so much product differentiation, you know, direct product feature differentiation these days, but maybe there's differentiation around the value-added services you offer around that, the way you bring products to market, the relationships. Those are the areas, I think, where there's a lot of opportunity still. I put this up every talk. The other thing you need to think about is, as we move from this collaboration-centric world more into a personalized world, how do you react to that? Some of you are struggling to react to this, but you know, we can think about that as well. But as we move forward, but I just think that, when I look at business cases, and I probably reviewed last year, I did probably diligence or advice on about 30 different companies in this space. Very few are really thinking outside the box and really thinking about what's happening in the market and really bringing that into their business right now. And I think it's a time you've got to do that. So that would be my advice. So as usual, we can help you in various ways. I wasn't going to do a live demo. I'll just give you one tip today, that if you look, there's a big screen outside on a Cavell stand. There we're demonstrating live our partner tool. We have been out and scraped over the last 2.5 years pretty much every vendor's website for their partners, and we've built a global base of MSPs, resellers around the world, and now we've built technology that goes out and scrapes those websites and shows us who they're partnering with, what they're talking about. So if you're looking at a reseller channel and you want to understand, I want to find a Microsoft partner who also sells Cisco, who talks about CCaaS a lot, who has 50 employees, that's the tool for you. So you'll see it by the front there. We're launching it today. It's been in beta for the last 3 months and had some rave reviews. So we're really excited about that. So I hope that's keyed you up for the day. So we're going to be thinking about today, hopefully, really how the business case is changing. What are the assumptions that we've always made that need to be challenged now? And you'll see in the agenda there's various panels addressing those things that I highlighted. So thank you very much. So that is the end of my keynote. Hurrah! Clap! Yay! Yay!